White House history. For more than 200 years, the White House has been more than just the home of the presidents and their families. Throughout the world, it is recognized as the symbol of the president, of the president's administration, and of the United States. About the building. For 200 years, the White House has stood as a symbol of the presidency, the United States government, and the American people. Its history, and the history of the nation's capital, began when President George Washington signed an act of Congress in December of 1790 declaring that the federal government would reside in a district not exceeding 10 miles square ellipsis points on the river Potomac. President Washington, together with city planner Pierre L'Enfant, chose the site for the new residence, which is now 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. As preparations began for the new federal city, a competition was held to find a builder of the president's house. 9 proposals were submitted, and Irish-born architect James Hobben won a gold medal for his practical and handsome design. Construction began when the first cornerstone was laid in October of 1792. Although President Washington oversaw the construction of the house, he never lived in it. It was not until 1800, when the White House was nearly completed, that its first residents, President John Adams and his wife, Abigail, moved in. Since that time, each president has made his own changes and additions. The White House is, after all, the president's private home. It is also the only private residence of a head of state that is open to the public, free of charge. Presidents can express their individual style in how they decorate some parts of the house and in how they receive the public during their stay. Thomas Jefferson held the first inaugural open house in 1805. Many of those who attended the swearing-in ceremony at the U.S. Capitol simply followed him home, where he greeted them in the Blue Room. President Jefferson also opened the house for public tours, and it has remained open, except during wartime, ever since. In addition, he welcomed visitors to annual receptions on New Year's Day and on the 4th of July. In 1829, a horde of 20,000 inaugural callers forced President Andrew Jackson to flee to the safety of a hotel, while, on the lawn, aides filled washtubs with orange juice and whiskey to lure the mob out of the mud-tracked White House. After Abraham Lincoln's presidency, inaugural crowds became far too large for the White House to accommodate them comfortably. However, not until Grover Cleveland's first presidency did this unsafe practice change. He held a presidential review of the troops from a flag-draped grandstand built in front of the White House. This procession evolved into the official inaugural parade we know today. Receptions on New Year's Day and the 4th of July continued to be held until the early 1930s. There are 132 rooms, 35 bathrooms, and 6 levels in the residence. There are also 412 doors, 147 windows, 28 fireplaces, 8 staircases, and 3 elevators. At various times in history, the White House has been known as the President's Palace, the President's House, and the Executive Mansion. President Theodore Roosevelt officially gave the White House its current name in 1901. Presidential firsts, while in office. President James Polk, 1845-49, was the first president to have his photograph taken. President Theodore Roosevelt, 1901-9, was not only the first president to ride in an automobile, but also the first president to travel outside the country when he visited Panama. President Franklin Roosevelt, 1933–45, was the first president to ride in an airplane. With 5 full-time chefs, the White House kitchen is able to serve dinner to as many as 140 guests and hors d'oeuvre to more than 1,000. The White House requires 570 gallons of paint to cover its outside surface. For recreation, the White House has a variety of facilities available to its residents, including a tennis court, jogging track, swimming pool, movie theater, and bowling lane.